Across planet internet, self-appointed scientists are filming outrageous acts of science. These internet heroes are doing bizarre experiments, making extraordinary inventions, and creating amazing scientific stunts. We've gathered a team of top science brains to analyze just how they do it, why they do it, and choose the very best. It's science, but not as you know it. So stand back and don't even think about trying this at home. No, we mean that. In this episode, we're showboating with show-offs. Those internet exhibitionists who prove that talent, dedication, practice, and a lack of embarrassment equal awesome science.
I'm looking for people who have got amazing skills, the kind of skills that you see and you just go, wow, how did you do that?
To be a show-off, you need to have an amazing skill and be able to show us your best take.
I'm looking for people who can do what no one else in the world can do.
So now that we know what it takes to be a show-off, let the exhibitionism begin with number 20. This is Eric Nash, a street performer showing off for a crowd in Santa Monica. But if you think that's showing off, then this will blow your mind. Behold the Super Moonwalk. This astonishing clip has earned him 6.5 million hits so far.
What's this guy doing? How is he doing it? How is he actually moving backwards so quickly?
Before we break it down on the Super Moonwalk, let's see the original Moonwalk.
You need to know how you're distributing your weight at all times. When you go forward, the reason you can lift your foot is because all your weight is on the other foot. When you want to do moonwalking backwards, you do the illusion of making it look like you're lifting a foot, but you have your weight on it so that the other foot can be slid backwards, then you shift it.
Okay, we got that, but
He's physically throwing himself backwards with a lot of force, and that's going to build up because there's nothing really to slow him down. His foot is sliding along.
To slide my entire leg by having one leg up and thrusting all my body weight backwards and up like this.
In effect, he's actually ice skating in reverse, which is probably more difficult. It doesn't sound as cool, but scientifically and physically, it's actually far more demanding.
okay, that's the physics, but he still looks like he's going forwards. How is that possible?
Most of what he's doing is designed to trick the person into thinking that he's travelling forward. So the way he moves his arms, the way he moves all his body actually, is designed to fool us that he's going forward. Even etched onto his face appeared to be this will to move forward. He looked like he was running through a bus, but he was going in the opposite direction. I bet he's missed loads of buses.
Eric, you're a true show-off. Eric. Oh, well. From a moonwalking masterclass to a shot-drinking show-off, meet Robin. He's about to drink a flaming shot of alcohol. I don't think that was supposed to happen, but at least he's okay.
Whenever you're going to mix alcohol, drunk people, and fire, it's never going to end well. So I would definitely recommend not doing this.
Normally, you let it go out before you drink it.
So, what's happening here?
Fires need three things to burn. They need fuel, oxygen, and heat. When he breathes out, he suddenly breathes a whole load of oxygen, which mixes with the fuel. There's already a heat source because it's on fire, and that leads to the fire growing rapidly.
But it's only a small amount of alcohol, so why does it make such a big flame?
Alcohol is much more volatile than water. It will evaporate very, very quickly. When something evaporates, the particles are much more spread out. So the surface area of these alcohol molecules is much greater, meaning that they are more flammable.
So if you increase the surface area of the liquid, then oxygen becomes more involved, and you have an epic flame. Some say men multitask better than women, but they've probably never seen our next exhibitionist, who landed 1 million hits with her ability to write with both hands at the same time in different languages.
I thought this woman was impressive. I mean, some people have a hard time even writing one language with one hand.
Chen Xiwan is a 24-year-old translator from Hebei province in northern China. Chen discovered she could write with both hands by accident when she was learning English as a young girl. So, how does she do it?
The human brain is in two halves. When you start writing, for example, that is assigned to one half of your brain. For most right-handed people, the actual right-handed functioning in your brain happens in the left-hand side of your brain. If we took a brain scan of this woman while she's writing, we would see that both halves of the brain are working to get her hands moving. She's much like a practiced piano player, somebody who's practiced using both hands for different tasks at the same time.
When you're given lines at school, I suppose it's a really quick way of cheating and kind of like knocking them out in half the time.
Want to impress your date? Here's a neat trick to show off.
I'm going to balance 2 forks on top of 1 toothpick on the edge of this glass.
As a physicist, this is the kind of trick I use to impress guys when I'm on a date.
So what's going on here? Or is it even a trick at all?
It looks like magic, but it is still physics. It relies on the pivots that you've created in this system. There's one pivot on the edge of the glass. There's one pivot, which is where the forks meet together in the middle. So the combination of these two and the fact that the forks are really heavy on the bottom end, or handles of the forks, that means that the whole thing balances absolutely beautifully. I think the icing on the cake here is the burning of the toothpick. Most people think that as you burn that mass, the whole system is going to fall on the other end, but it doesn't. And the reason is that that little mass is insignificant compared to all the mass of the entire system.
To prove just how easy it is, we asked Sayed to do it. Hang on.
This makes me happy. I did the fork trick.
Now it's time to touch down briefly in Rhode Island with pilot Ken Peach, who's about to land this plane on a moving RV. Wait, really? Is that even possible?
This stunt requires unimaginable skill.
So how did Ken turn a truck into his own personal runway?
The guys have to match the speed of the plane as it lands with the speed of the truck.
If the speeds aren't exactly right, then you're going to get problems. It's going to fall off the back, or the plane's going to roll off the front.
Yeah, you'd think that's the hard part, but it's not.
The reason why this is so dangerous has to do with side winds, because when they come in, they can create aerodynamic instabilities that could flip the plane over.
You get a crosswind and it's hitting the side of the truck, that wind will deflect up and actually create an extra force on one side of his wing. And if he's got imbalance in terms of air pressure under his wing, it's going to make him turn. So he wants to make sure there's no crosswinds involved.
So far, our sensational show-offs have shown us some monster moonwalking, some subpar shot drinking, and incredible four-phase physics. But coming up, our exhibitionists get even more extreme. We're blowing up barrels, balancing between trucks, finding out if a man can throw a needle through glass. All this and more coming up on Outrageous Acts of Science. Welcome back to our countdown of the internet's biggest show-offs, featuring some of the most astonishing displays of exhibitionism you'll ever see. As we enter our top 15, things are about to get even more fabulous. Meet Byron Ferguson. He's been showing off with a bow and arrow since the age of 12, which is why he can do tricks like this. Byron has earned himself an impressive 500,000 hits so far by bouncing an arrow off a ramp and hitting a target. But why doesn't the arrow just bounce off the ramp and fly away?
You'd expect the arrow to break or at least be horribly deflected, but no, somehow it doesn't get damaged and it continues on in the correct direction.
He's done this total indirect shot, and you're like, wow, physics, angles, he knows exactly what he's doing, and just bam, he just nails it.
Everything about that shot, if it works, has to be a perfect shot. There is no just getting it close.
But what makes an arrow so accurate?
For the arrow to fly straight, it needs to have these fletches on the back.
What I love about the Fletchers, the feathery bits on the end of the arrow, is that counterintuitively, they're designed to not be aerodynamic. They're deliberately difficult to drag through the air. And what that means is if the arrow starts to tilt to one side, the drag on the Fletchers will bring it back around so it continues to face in the right direction.
So, now that we know how it works, we challenge Byron to do a bit more showboating by popping a balloon after 2 deflections. First, he's got to hit a ramp, then a second surface, then the balloon.
There are so many things that has to go perfectly. You have to hit the first ramp exactly. Come up under the overhead ramp and bounce off the bottom of it and then behind the hay bales to break the balloon.
You can actually see the arrow bending as it hits the ramp and flies toward the target.
It only takes me one arrow to hit every shot. It's none of your business how many times I have to shoot that arrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next show-off, John Bailey, is about to de-head a daisy from more than 40 feet away using a whip. Yeah, beautiful.
Cut off.
That is really impressive. To chop the end off a flower at 42 feet, 13 meters away, be able to do floristry from a distance. It's beautiful.
Ouch. So, how do you turn a flick of the wrist into a lethal flower-cutting strike from over 40 feet away?
So the key to this is the shape of the whip. It's really thick at the handle, but it's really thin at the point it gets the end where it cuts the flower. So a little bit of force at one end multiplies to a really big force at the other end. That's the conservation of momentum. That's what makes this whip so powerful.
Now, momentum is calculated from the mass times the object's velocity. So as he flicks his wrist, a wave is produced. The mass decreases. If you've got to keep the same momentum, that means the velocity must start to increase by the same amount. And what this means is that a fairly slow wave at the start, where it's very heavy, gets faster and faster and faster towards the end, where it tapers until he gets ridiculous speed building up.
So just how fast is the end of the whip traveling?
There's a sonic boom. There's a crack at the end. That means that the whip must be traveling at the speed of sound. That's about 700 miles an hour or 1,200 kilometers an hour. That is how fast the tip of that whip is going.
Okay, that's pretty fast. Want to show off for your buddies? Then you need this awesome contraption. Yes, it balances concrete blocks. Tray of drinks? No problem. What about that wooden frame you've been trying to balance for ages? That's right, all you need is Ball IP. A robot that can balance on a ball.
So I'm an engineer. I love robots. This stuff is so cool.
This is absolutely great science in action. I can't do that. How did the robot manage to do that?
Yes, that is a good question, and it's not easy. As inventor Dr. Masaaki Komagai demonstrates here.
This robot is definitely a pretty complicated mechanism. It has gyroscopes and accelerometers to figure out where it is and which way it's moving.
But how exactly does a 15-pound robot stay perched on a ball?
To balance a robot on a ball, what these people realized is they don't need to have the robot move, but actually have the ball move instead.
It uses wheels to spin the ball so that it never comes unbalanced.
They adjusted for the movement of the ball by rotating the ball and rotating the position of center of mass just to keep everything aligned.
So, by moving the ball, the robot manages to keep its center of mass vertically stable. And looks really cool doing it. Stick around for more show-offs on Outrageous Acts of Science. Welcome back to Outrageous Acts of Science. At number 12 in our countdown, meet Ashrita Furman from New York City, who's about to show off with a gigantic 15-foot hula hoop.
I have never seen a hula hoop this big in my life.
It must be pretty hard for him because he's, you know.
Ed Schrader grunted his way to a world record 19 revolutions. But how did he do it?
When you think about the physics of it, he first has to give this sucker enough impulse to get it going, right? To get it moving.
The speed of the hula hoop, so the speed that it has to go to counteract gravity, is all to do with the size. He has to get this thing going at 17 kilometers per hour, which is like 10.5 miles per hour, which is quite a lot.
The one challenge, once he's get this hula hoop up and up to speed, is that it's going to lose energy to friction, right? And so he has to constantly add energy back into the system. And that's where his hula hooping genius comes in. Once it's moving, we have our friend, angular momentum, and this is one of the conserved quantities in nature, which means that it doesn't like to change. So as long as he keeps it moving, it'll keep itself upright.
So the big challenge here is the strain of getting this baby started. But if Ashwita can get it up and spinning fast enough, physics begins to help out. A bit, anyway.
So what does he do? It's... No. How does he do it?
I was like, what?
What is he... I can't...
Please put your hands together for our next incredible show-off. With almost 4 million hits, it's the internet fastest clapper, Kent Toast Craig from South Dakota.
One more gear.
Kent can clap at a brain-busting 12 claps a second, a world record. But is that really clapping? We thought clapping sounded like this.
He's got his hands and his arms working in such a fluid motion that he's able to have more claps. He's kind of worked around the whole theory of what we consider clapping and pushed it to its limits.
It's so fast we slowed it down and it didn't make any difference. It's still so fast, it's hard to see. But just how far can you take extreme clapping?
So currently, Ken is doing about 721 claps a minute, which translates to 12 claps in 1 second, which is pretty astounding.
He's got a really good technique to do fast clapping, but he's obviously also practiced it to get faster and faster and faster, but there is a limit to how fast he's going to be able to get.
The limit of contracting muscles is something like 50 times per second. So that's got to be the theoretical upper limit. But each clap is not just contracting a muscle. Each clap is a complicated series of movements. So I would say 12 per second is probably about the limit.
Now that you've seen how it's done, it's time to practice on your own.
Thank you. I think that was about 30 or 40 per second. Run it back.
So far, some astonishing show-offs have impressed our scientists. But as we enter the top 10, we discover a show-off who didn't practice. He was simply born with his outrageous talent. Now, if you think the show-off's mask is weird, and you probably do, stay tuned.
Really weirded me out, man. It makes me feel a bit queasy watching it.
It looks like it should be painful, and that's why it's fascinating. Whenever you see the human body do something that you can't do, and if you tried to do it, it would hurt, it's immediately fascinating.
Yes, this is Steve Abagnaro from Connecticut, who must be one of the bendiest double-jointed men in the world. How does he tie himself in knots like this?
Double-jointed sounds like they have two joints, but in fact that's of course not what's happening here. Scientists refer to this as hypermobility. About 5% of the population have this kind of joints. In normal people, ligaments work more or less like rubber, so you can't stretch them, but they snap back. And these ligaments are made up of connective tissue, which has a main component, the collagen. And if you have a defect in this collagen, so it's more like chewing gum. And you can stretch it far more than you should be stretching it.
Even one of our own experts is in that 5%. Watch your arms.
I always wanted to do that on TV.
And if you're in that 5% of exceptionally elastic people, be careful showing off.
My suggestion would be to not do them too much, because you don't want to stretch it even more than it's already been stretched. It could lead to injury.
So far, our shameless show-offs have served us up a ball-balancing robot, a glass full of phenomenal physics, and some ballistic balloon-bursting bravado. But coming up, we're going to the limits of human ability and beyond in Outrageous Acts of Science. Welcome back to our countdown of the top 20 movers and shakers in the world of show-offs. So far, we've seen what happens when alcohol reacts with stupidity, moonwalk to fame, and cracked a whip at the speed of sound. But the animal kingdom also has its fair share of show-offs, like Norman the dog.
Good boy, Norman. Good boy. It's like there is a little person inside a little dog outfit pedaling on this bike. I find it a bit weird.
The dog is on a bike. What's not to like about that?
Norman, bike. Good.
We asked Norman, who's a French sheepdog, how he did it. But he's a dog, and even our experts don't understand him, so we asked his human instead.
Good boy. It took about 3 years for him to learn to ride the bike, from start to finish. But mostly it was because we didn't have a bicycle that fit him. As he was growing, we had to keep changing bicycles and modifying things. Good boy. Stay. Once he was full size, we worked on it about a year before he was really pedaling on his own. Good job. Very good.
Training some dogs to fetch a ball is hard work, but riding a bike? How's that done?
The dog has learned how to do this step by step. And what happens is the dog will have been taught to do the first thing. Maybe just hop on that bike. And we'll get a positive reinforcement. Some food treats or some love. And this is how dogs are trained. This is how they learn to do tricks. So the moment he does what I like, I'll click a dog clicker and give him a treat after. That way he knows that's the exact behavior I wanted and the treat's coming.
Good boy.
And that's what scientists call operant conditioning. And Norman clearly has the ability to learn and execute a complex series of instructions over time.
Good boy. You got it.
But that's not the only thing he can do. Using the same training techniques, he's able to ride a scooter.
Good job. There you go. Good.
And play the piano. Well, sort of. Okay, this is something you definitely don't want to try at home. We're in Croatia with Christian, who's about to show off with some elementary chemistry. The first thing they did was get a highly reactive substance and mix it with water, which is never a good idea.
This is the best chemical reaction I've ever seen done in a field.
Acetylene. It's used in things like blowtorches, and it's a really teeny tiny little chemical molecule, but actually it has got so much energy and power in it that when you do set fire to it, it releases all the energy in those chemical bonds in one go, producing all this energy and therefore a huge explosion.
So, we know what the ingredients are, but what were those crazy guys doing? One's jumping up and down in this barrel, the other's got his thumb over something.
As this acetylene gas is building up, you can see one of the guys jumping up and down on top of the oil barrel. And this makes the seal between the oil barrel and the ground much better. And you have another guy with his thumb on top of the hole, so you're building up a nice concentration of acetylene gas inside the drum.
But why does this gas-filled barrel manage to get such epic airtime?
They light the gas that's coming out of the hole, and this starts a fire that shoots inside the container.
Now, the overall result of this force means that while all this gas wants to escape downwards, it can't escape quickly enough. Instead, the oil drum has to move to accommodate for all this gas wanting to quickly escape. Therefore, it shoots upwards into the air, creating this rocket. It's amazing.
And incredibly dangerous, so please don't try this at home. After the break, more show-offs on Outrageous Acts of Science. Welcome back to Outrageous Acts of Science. Ever decide to throw yourself off a balcony after a hard day at the office, only to find out some idiots left a trampoline sitting around? Of course it's not an accident. It's master trampolinist, Ali Lemieux.
looks like it was a film that was put in rewind.
The fact that he's wearing just regular office clothes, that all kind of adds to the nonchalance of him just falling and bouncing on his back.
But here's a mystery. How does he manage to bounce back to exactly where he started without any effort? Isn't he breaking the laws of physics?
In theory, you shouldn't bounce back at the same height.
The law of conservation of energy says that the amount of energy you put into a system equals the amount that comes out. But he's in a world where energy is lost during his bounce. Energy is lost due to friction of his body against the air molecules. It's lost in sound. It's lost in heat. So you'd expect that he would not bounce up quite as high as he leapt from.
So, how's he doing it?
As he jumps off, he's pushing off his body so that he can get back to the same height. Pretty impressive. If I would have tried it, I probably would have come short and I would have been hanging on to the edge of dear life.
Yes, it's almost imperceptible when you first see it, but there it is. You can just see him adding a bit of energy with his left foot. Clever. Now with 1 million hits and counting, it's time to meet Mariska. She can unbolt her stable door, and she's an 8-year-old Frisian mare from Michigan.
That's a one-trick pony.
No, because if that wasn't enough, she can also unbolt other stable doors with different locks.
This is very surprising, because I didn't know horses were that smart. They could actually work this stuff out.
It is surprising, and no disrespect to horses, but it surely requires massive equine intelligence to unlock something.
She is smart enough to understand how to open the gate to get more food. That's the ultimate aim for this horse, is to try and find more food. As a rule, we tend to see horses as perhaps a little bit more sedate and less intelligent, but as we can see with this horse, she's managed to figure out not just the same bolt each time, but different combinations of locks. Horses have had studies done where they've had to find food rewards in pairs, and even 12 months on, they can still remember those, so they have got an exceptional memory.
So she's got the brains to do it, but no opposable digit.
Horses have got very sensitive mouths, and their lips are very sensitive. They also have prehensile lips, which means that they can hold things.
Much like we're in control of our hands, the horse is in control of these lips. And evolutionarily, this has developed to be able to pull grasses out of the ground or mosses to eat. This is how she's able to push and pull and get the locks open.
Mariska, the horse escape artist. So far in our showdown of internet show-offs, we've marveled at a man who traveled back to the future. We've met a super-fast clapper, and we've done some cataclysmic chemistry. So welcome to the Top 5, where we're about to take showing off to a whole new level. And now we're off to Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, Switzerland. And this awesome marriage of physics and computing genius that garnered 2 million hits.
That is incredibly complex and incredibly cool to see robots doing that.
Yes, that is one flying robot throwing a pole, and the other flying robot not only catching it, but managing to keep it balanced vertically.
If you've ever tried to balance a stick on your finger, you'll realize it's really, really hard.
We've evolved to be able to do things like this almost subconsciously. For a robot, you've got to explicitly program every step for how it's going to do it.
How is it done?
So this whole room is covered with cameras, which is constantly monitoring the motion of the stick, the motion of the robots, and possibly providing a feedback loop, allowing for minute corrections in the movement of the robots and the stick, allowing this maneuver to take place.
These cameras are able to track the 2 dots you can see on the stick, and they're what calculates where it's going to go and how the quadricopter is able to catch it.
The key thing is actually how fast this information is being processed.
There's only 0.65 seconds between the throw and the catch.
Because computers have become extremely fast now, you can make these microscopic corrections to correct for the movement of the robot at immense speed.
So processing speed is vital, but how do you teach a robot to throw and catch a pole?
What's particularly amazing is that they program them to learn how to catch a stick. Each time they try it, they benefit from the success or failure of the previous ones. They're gradually learning.
Welcome, new robot overlords. We'll never have to catch and balance a pole ever again. At number 4, it's a 7 million hit viral sensation. This is world champion slackliner Faith Dickey from Texas, attempting to cross a rope strung between two trucks moving at 50 miles per hour down a highway in Croatia.
Could they have made the stunt any more dangerous? They had moving trucks, someone balancing on a tightrope walking across, and a tunnel coming towards them.
Faith just made it. And there she is walking between two trucks again. And, they're not moving.
I wasn't afraid. Jumping off the line onto the top of the truck was the most fun part about the whole stunt. I felt like a ninja.
So, what's the secret to slacklining?
Keep your back really straight. This is really important because it helps center your weight over the line. You also want your feet to be in the same direction as the line, so walking forwards, not to the side. Not only that, but your arms are always in the air. Those are acting as your balancing pole. So when your weight shifts one way, you want to counteract that by throwing your arms to the other side.
What's it like trying to balance between two trucks moving at 50 miles per hour?
So what makes this trick work is something called frames of reference. The trucks are moving at the same speed, so is Faith. The only thing that's not moving at the same speed is a force of air, which is constantly pushing against her.
So if everything is moving at a constant speed, it's just like doing it in a parking lot, only with howling winds.
There was a really strong wind coming from this side, so it felt like it was pushing me over this way. So I was trying to stay really straight and lean against the wind a little bit so that I kept my body straight rather than falling off that direction. Not only that, but I wasn't the one shaking the line like this. It was the trucks and the road. It would shake without me knowing where the shake was coming from, and I had to adjust really quickly.
Coming up next, it's time for our top 3, when outrageous acts of science crowns our champion show-offs from among the web's very best. Welcome back. So far in Outrageous Acts of Science, we've seen that made us wince, as our show-offs deploy their skills to awesome and sometimes accidental effect. And at number 3, it's E.T. No, not the alien, the walrus. And unless you're a walrus too, you're about to join 2 million other people who witnessed something it's almost impossible to see in the wild.
He's showing off 2 amazing skills. One is the extraordinary diversity of sounds, and the other is that he can do them on command.
The thought that came to mind when I heard that whistle is, how did this develop? Do they have to, when they're in their little colonies, do they have to whistle at one another when a cute-looking walrus goes by? Is that what this guy does?
The noises that E.T. is making are mating calls. They happen in the wild during the mating season, and they're known to go on for a number of days. They're not just one-off sounds.
But how does E.T. produce this incredible range of sounds?
E.T. has got a number of features in his body which allow him to make this broad range of sounds.
So he's got a larynx as if with vocal folds in it that vibrate with air rushing over it to make some sounds. But he can also control that. They've got very, very fleshy muzzle and very, very fleshy face, so they can manipulate their whole head in order to change the way the sound is moving in that space.
The unique part is that they have these pharyngeal pouches, which are a bit like an extra set of lungs, and they're used to make very loud sounds underwater, and they can even be used to keep them afloat if they're asleep in the water. So all these different features allow these walruses to make this broad range of noises. Whistle.
Okay, check this out. This is Mehmed Yilmaz showing off an astonishing ability to do something both disgusting and amazing.
How do you even learn to squirt milk out of your eye? Why would you do something like that?
They say don't cry over spilled milk. This is crying via spilled milk.
But how exactly does he do it? I mean, has he somehow replumbed his face?
You ever notice if you start crying, tears come out your eyes, and these are, of course, meant to coat your eyes and protect them. But your nose runs at the same time. There's a duct between the eye and the nose that allows something to go out. It doesn't usually allow something to come back in and out the eye the other way.
So we've all got this duct, but how does Mehmet make it work backwards?
He does it very simply with pressure. So all he needs to do is basically get the milk into his nasal cavity and then breathe in and go to breathe out without breathing out. And then with that extra pressure inside him, the liquid can't get out his nose because he's holding it. It can't get out his mouth because it's closed.
That liquid has to go somewhere, and where it goes is back up through the lacrimal duct, out his eye, and into a distant teacup.
This could potentially be dangerous. It might kind of wreck the process of crying. You don't want to mess around with your eyes.
You heard it, folks. Please don't try this at home. Guys, this definitely won't get you the girl. So far in our countdown of science-driven show-offs, we've seen how mind-boggling dedication and practice helped our heroes bend arrows around corners, teach pets to pedal, and robots to throw, catch, and possibly rule the world. And our number one outrageous show-off is a Shaolin monk who can do something unbelievable with a needle, a pane of glass, and a balloon. This is Shifu Shi Yanju, who's been studying to be a Shaolin monk since the age of 6. Now, he's about to mess with your head, so watch carefully. Yes, you've just seen a man throw a needle through a pane of glass.
Is this real or is this magic?
I'm still at a bit of a loss, really. It's so puzzling, it's so impressive.
I wasn't convinced that he'd really done it. As a material scientist, I find it very weird.
We went down with an ultra-high-speed camera to film our ultra-high-speed monk and find out exactly what's happening.
用这个针穿玻璃的时候，你的脑子一定要心平气和，要就是所有的都是脑子的杂事啊、意念呀，要是心平气呀，运到你的手到这个指尖，然后呢，叫所有的杂事放下。
That's the philosophy. Let's see it in action. With a normal camera, it's impossible to see what's going on, so it's time to check out what our high-speed camera has captured. And there it is, the needle rocketing through the glass and out the other side. Amazing.
Yes!
Now that we've seen it, what exactly did we see?
The speed that he's throwing it. He's throwing it at 150 kilometers an hour. That's nearly 100 miles an hour. That's how fast it leaves his hand. That is at the edges of what you think a human is capable of. To get through the glass, you need a really, really big pressure. And pressure is force divided by area. We know he's got immense force with that needle. We also know the area is tiny. That means he's creating this huge pressure. That is enough to burst through the glass and out the other side. It's incredible.
But why doesn't the glass shatter?
Now, the reason that it does this is because glass is a little bit freaky.
Glass, despite all appearances, is not actually a normal solid. It's what's called an amorphous solid. And this means that when it gets hit by a needle, it doesn't immediately transfer that force across the whole plane. It means it can be focused and stay quite localized.
And if you're thinking of trying this, don't. It took Shifu Shi Yanju a whole lot of practice.
这个都是针穿玻璃是我练了15年。
He is quite rightly the number one show-off, actually, because as party tricks go, that one wipes the floor with anything I've ever seen.
So as we watch Shifu perform his party trick in super slow motion, it's time to say Zai Shen. Until next time on Outrageous Acts of Science.